Thank you, Ted. And we're going to get just introduction from the sponsor of the bill, Representative Burke, and then we'll have Ledge Council walk us through it. And we've got a half hour set aside for that.
Okay. So, we on?
We are, yeah.
Okay. For the record, Representative Molly Burke of Brattleboro, and I'm here to talk about H229. And a purpose of the bill is to establish a farm and forestry operations security special fund to provide financial assistance to farms and forestry operations that experience qualifying losses due to weather conditions. I want to thank the committee for inviting me in, and nice to be here. So the reasons for the bill, the genesis of the bill was that after the second round of devastating flooding in 2 years, in 2024, a group of farmer organizations began meeting to discuss the need for a permanent and predictable system for providing farmers with financial support to recover from weather-related losses. And they used the lessons learned by many of the organizations who provide direct services support to farms in terms of emergencies. And they worked over the past 2 years to develop a program that is responsive to farmers' specific needs, equitably distributed, easily accessible, and providing meaningful and immediate financial support. I think immediate is a really important word here. Many of our farms cannot afford to weather impacts like the ones we've seen in the past 2 years again and again. The state has a substantial interest in securing our farms' futures, and failure to support the recovery puts Vermont's food security, rural economies, and climate resiliency at risk. And this bill was designed based on the experiences of and input from all types of farmers, conversations with community members in all corners of the state, and through conversation with folks within the Agency of Agriculture who help administer the BGAP program for farms. And we know that federal programs to insulate farmers and help them recover, such as crop insurance and disaster programs, are woefully insufficient to meet the need, and funding support from Congress arrives extremely slowly, if at all. So, as I mentioned, the reasons for the bill was based on as we know and remember, the 2023 and 2024 extreme flooding that devastated farms and other working lands and businesses across the state. The existing programs are difficult to access, administratively burdensome, and not equitably distributed to small and medium-scale farmers. Federal crop insurance programs are not designed to serve small scale or diversified funding operations, and many farmers are not covered by crop insurance. Purpose of state funding is to ensure the viability of farms and forestry operations for food security, climate resilience, rural economic vitality, environmental health. And the state should continuously invest in farms and forestry operations for resilience to current and future challenges. And the state should establish a permanent funding support program for this, for the viability, food security, climate resilience, rural economic benefits, and environmental health. The need for resilience against future challenges, and relief funds permanently available to farmers and forestry operations impacted by climate emergencies and extreme weather. The bill goes on to define what are eligible weather conditions. You can read that in the bill. And it sets up a farm and forestry operations security special fund administered by the Agency of Agriculture and managed in accordance with the statutory special funds, how they operate. And the special fund would consist of appropriations from the General Assembly, funds from public and private sources, federal funds for state support of farmers suffering income loss due to weather conditions, if they were available. And the Farm and Forestry Operations Security Special Fund would give out grants. And the way that would happen is the Secretary consults with the review board and awards grants to operations that have incurred losses due to eligible weather conditions. And there are definitions of how you decide what a eligible weather condition is. The reimbursement would be up to 50% of uninsured or uncovered losses due to eligible weather conditions, with a maximum award of $150,000. And the criteria for the award would be based on the annual net income of the operation in relation to the median net income of all farms in Vermont. And the verification of eligible weather conditions can be made through certain kinds of weather data, NOAA, other certified weather data sources. And it'd be a list of reimbursable losses. The secretary should develop a streamlined application. I think that's, again, an important word, streamlined, so that this money can get to farmers quickly. The applications can be made at any time, processed in the order received, and other details related to processing. For instance, the evaluation of awards by the review board within 1 week of complete applications. A majority of board makes the recommendation, and the secretary issues the award within 2 weeks. That is a really, I think, really the crux of what we're doing here, trying to get money out fast. And then the review board is made up of Secretary of Ag is the chair, and then it lists the other people on the board. I'm not going to can read that in the bill. The powers of the powers of the review board, and the funding intent. There'll be a report on future appropriations. The General Assembly recommends that Farm and Forestry Operations Security Special Fund should receive an annual appropriation equal to 50% of the average documented farm losses from eligible weather conditions averaged over 3 years. And on January 15th of each year, the board shall submit relevant committees in the House and Senate January 15th, I guess, of next year, shall submit relevant committees in the House and Senate a recommended appropriation to the special fund. I think that the ask would be for $20 million for this year. And then after that, this sort of formula would kick in. And I know that some of the organizations that supported this are NOFA Vermont, Center on Agriculture Economy, Vermont Farm Bureau, Farmers Alliance, Rural Vermont, Interville Center, and Vegetable and Berry Growers Association. So this was a collaboration of a lot of different organizations, and that's the bill.
Great, thank you very much. And you just listed the organizations that were involved. Were you also working on this with them over the course of the summer and fall?
Not well. At some point, I was contacted because I had worked, if you remember, trying to help the organic dairy farmers when we had that crisis of pricing a couple of years ago. And so I had worked with NOFA before. So I was contacted by NOFA to see if I would be interested in sponsoring it. And I said enthusiastically that I was interested because I'm really interested in the viability of our farms. I know in my area, Green Mountain Orchard was absolutely devastated by the freeze that happened a couple of Mays ago. I mean, they lost their whole crop. And it's a very important landowner in our area, very important business, very important, attract a lot of people, a lot of tourists, et cetera. So, and I know the Miller Orchard was the same. And Mela Miller of the Miller Orchard said to me, she said, we're used to experiencing, maybe when we have a bad year, but because we know the next year is going to be okay. She said, now we don't know that. So there's that sort of.
Yep.
Anyway.
Committee have any questions? Is the, just knowing that, I mean, you alluded to the challenges, the disasters from last summer and 2023 as well. Would this, would the board that's being set up here be able to look back and retroactively at the past disasters and make a grant to cover that, or is it only moving forward?
I don't know if I can answer that question. Maybe I don't know.
So that may be the way the language.
Maybe that's a question for if you're picking up the bill and developing the language.
Okay.
That could be discussed.
All right. Because
that's a a departure, I think, from what's presented here.
You mentioned $20 million as a recommendation. I'm not sure that that's actually in the bill either.
It's not in the bill.
It's not, okay. So this is, the bill itself is merely setting up the board, establishing the guidelines, and then a year from now or by next January, the board would make a recommendation for the following year's budget essentially.
Well, I want to defer to Maddie because,
Maddie Kempner, go
Hi,
on
Maddie.
record. Yes, we're asking for a one-time appropriation in FY 2026 to get the funds started. And there is a formula, as I've mentioned, I think, and as Representative Burke just mentioned, there's a formula in the bill that would create an annual appropriation based on the average of the previous 3 years' total losses. And it would be 50% of that number, to be clear, because the goal is to cover up to 50% of farms' uncovered losses in this bill. In the event that the bill makes it all the way through both chambers this session, then the number that we are asking for as a one-time appropriation could be reconciled with the policy language itself. If that answers the question.
Yeah, just, is the $20 million in the bill, or is that a separate,
It's not explicitly listed in the bill.
is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, good. Any other questions? Anybody who might be zooming from the committee? Just looking, okay. All right, thank you very much for coming in.
thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bringing the bill.
Yeah, appreciate your listening.
So
Mike O'Grady was,
Yeah, I think he's not available. Turns out he wasn't available, so we'll have to put that off until we can get him in. So we're a little bit shorthanded here, but maybe we can just take a minute to see if anyone has any thoughts on what of the bills that we've got. So 5 on the wall, the one that we talked about yesterday, the miscellaneous ag bill. We can probably not realistically take testimony and get them all across the finish line by the crossover day, but we can certainly do our best on some of them. So if anybody has a particular one that you want to speak in favor of, happy to hear that.
The bottom 3 look to be the most important to me offhand, but
Which one, 167?
I saw them 3, bottom 3. In terms of influence.
Yeah, so what we need is a whiteboard here so that we don't even have a bulletin board anymore over here. Left. But yeah, so H4, that was for, that we called it the egg bill, but it's really about hens. And then the H14 was on product testing. We had that walk through. 134 yesterday, that's the
Current use.
use and the 2 different pieces of that. 167, that's the food bank, thank you. Yeah, just barely legible from here with mask. And then 229, we just heard.
In my mind, and I'm real new, so when you tell me if everything isn't as simple as I think. H4, to me, is just the only question is, does it have impact on what's coming from out of state?
Mhm.
Other than that, as far as what's going on in state, that's a simple bill. And chickens shouldn't live in a shoebox.
Is that a concern in the state of Vermont? We don't have a big commercial production.
We have some, and they're done correctly that I know of. But yes, really, you're not wrong. H14, I think we're gonna have to get a lot of testimony from UVM veterinarians who want to weigh in on that one.
And again, that was preemptory. We don't even know that it's happening in the state. That's why we would.
Yeah. 134. I'd like to see us work on that. I think that's gonna take time. That may be something we do during the total biennium. I don't know how fast we can move things through. I'm looking for guidance.
No, I think everything you've said everything that's been said here is,
Our highest priorities are 134, 67. Yes.
Yeah, I think 167 is, real important. I think 229 is very important. We've heard, you know,
I think it is the amount of money if
With 229,
it's asked is.
the, just bear in mind, and to your earlier comment that you're new, although I think everything you said, everything that's been said here is right on. With any of these bills, they're introduced to us and we have the opportunity to take testimony, and then we have opportunity to amend to what we feel would be, what we would want to recommend to the rest of the House. So for example, just for example, on the first bill, we might look at that and say, take testimony and hear that there isn't a problem right now, but that we might want to think about eggs that are imported into Vermont and how the hens that are in another state are treated. That's been done in other states. So just for example, we could do that. And then in any of these bills that have a dollar amount, we think the dollar amount is not the right amount, we can recommend a different dollar, higher or lower.
so say H4, we have testimony from various stakeholders who, I mean, do you get a hold of those people?
Yeah, so we would reach out to people who we thought might be interested. It's often the case that people are aware of what's happening and they might reach out to us and say, we'd like to testify. And so then we would, see whether we had the opportunity to do that.
So how long of a process is that? We take testimony from whoever
It can,
participate, and then after that, we basically come to a decision as a committee.
we can, we prioritize things and say, we're going to work on this bill, we're going to work on this bill. We may work on a bill and then decide not to do anything with it. And it's also.
Or wait till next.
Put it off, yeah.
see, H4, I think you'd want testimony from Pete and Jerry's, Drew's, right across the lake in New York.
Yeah.
And maybe the Vermont Grocers Association.
All of those would be,
The only thing with H4, I would hate the thought of it. If I don't know where our eggs come from. I know Drew's is a big supplier. I know Pete and Jerry's are a big supplier. I think a lot of the chicken trays in Vermont, like the eggs I buy at our local Friendly Garden store, those are free range chickens for the most part. They are free range. But I worry about eggs that are coming in like to Walmart or to Hannaford's, Price Chopper, whatnot.
England's best.
Eggland's Best or Lucerne Farms, the Shaw's brand, because it's giving people the opportunity to buy eggs at not always the bottom price, but at a lower, typically at a lower price than, and I am charged with feeding the whole population, not people that can afford the next level up, but everybody. That's the only concern I have with it, but I don't know, because I'm not a chicken rancher.
And none of us are, I guess, in this room, so we would need to
You can have 1,000 leg heads.
educate ourselves. Good morning. All right, I think, since we're transitioning into the next phase here, we will take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back to hearing about fairs.
9:30, okay.